Think of a snake that bites and slithers away, unseen. It might feel victorious in the moment, but hidden beneath the surface is something greater. Karma, like an invisible current, already moving. And while the snake disappears into the grass, the consequences are already chasing it down in ways no one can see. There was a woman named Arya who was deeply betrayed by a close friend. This friend lied, smeared her name, and left her isolated. Everyone believed the lies for a while. Arya wanted to scream the truth, to expose the betrayal, but instead she chose silence. She focused on healing. She built herself back piece by piece. Months later, without fanfare, truth began to surface. That same friend lost connection after connection. People stopped trusting her, not because Arya said anything, but because her energy, her actions, and her dishonesty caught up with her, quietly, unseen. You see, karma rarely makes a scene. It's not interested in revenge. It's interested in balance. It's one of the hardest things to witness. When someone who hurt you seems to thrive, they betrayed your trust, twisted the truth, or left you with emotional scars, and yet they smile, succeed, and move on as if nothing happened. You ask yourself, where is the justice? Why do they get to be okay while I'm still healing? But here's the quiet truth. Life doesn't always settle its scores in the open. The universe doesn't hand out justice on a stage. It delivers it in silence, when no one's watching. And this is the heart of emotional maturity, realizing that it's not your job to chase justice. Your only job is to heal. Because while you're rebuilding in peace, karma is already speaking to them in the only language it knows: restlessness, sleepless nights, broken relationships, the gnawing feeling that something just isn't right. This video will explore 5 silent signs that someone is already facing the consequences of how they treated you. These are not punishments, they're reflections. Comment below with this affirmation: I trust life to deliver justice in silence. I choose healing over bitterness. Have you ever felt tempted to get even? What helped you let go? Share your story or drop your affirmation below. Your words may be the light someone else needs to release the weight they've been carrying. The first quiet sign that karma is already moving is this: they start acting like they've never been better. You know the type, the one who ghosted you without a word, betrayed your trust, twisted the story so it looked like you were the problem. And now, they're suddenly glowing. Their social media is flooded with curated pictures, radiant smiles, new places, new faces. It looks like they've upgraded their entire life overnight. And if you're not careful, you'll buy into the illusion. You'll start to wonder, maybe they really are happier without me. But pause, take a closer look, because not all that glitters is gold. In fact, some of it is desperation wrapped in a filter. Here's the truth. Real happiness doesn't need a spotlight. It's quiet, rooted, and deeply felt. Fake happiness, on the other hand, is loud, noisy, performative, and exhausting. You've seen this pattern before. Radio silence for days after the damage, then suddenly a flood of stories, quotes about healing, selfies drenched in ego, and captions that scream, "I'm thriving." But look into their eyes, past the lighting and the likes. The smile is forced. The energy is off. That's not confidence. That's cover-up. It's like painting over a cracked wall. The color might be bright, but the damage underneath still exists. You can't heal what you refuse to feel, and no amount of pretending can mute a conscience that whispers, you lost someone who truly cared. Remember the wisdom of the Stoics. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Marcus Aurelius added, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who did the harm." That's why those who walk the path of peace don't chase explanations, don't stalk for closure, and certainly don't retaliate. They simply observe, because peace doesn't need an audience. It simply is. Imagine a tree in a storm. It doesn't flail wildly to prove its strength. It just stands. That's emotional maturity. That's your strength now. And while they perform their glow-up for the world, karma begins its quiet work, not with thunderclaps, but with subtle erosion. It removes the very things they once took for granted: trust, respect, inner stillness. So let them post. Let them smile for the camera. Because you know the truth. The loudest performance often hides the deepest unrest. And the most exhausting lie? Pretending you're at peace when you're not. Comment below with this affirmation: I don't chase illusions, I protect my peace. Real healing needs no performance. Have you ever watched someone fake their glow-up after hurting you? Share your truth or affirmation in the comments. Let's speak peace into a space that often glorifies performance. The second quiet sign of karma at work isn't thunder, it's subtraction. When someone has caused harm, disrespected love, or taken goodness for granted, karma doesn't barge in dramatically. It doesn't slam doors or shout warnings. It simply begins to take things away, softly, subtly, without announcement. Not in a way that draws attention, but in the kind that leaves a lingering silence. They don't notice it at first. It starts small: a friend who stops replying, a trusted co-worker who withdraws, an opportunity that slips through their fingers, almost mysteriously. They brush it off as coincidence, bad timing, or a rough patch. But the pattern keeps repeating, like a quiet wind that keeps knocking over everything they once carelessly piled up. This is karma's signature move, not chaos, but quiet erosion. It's like living in a house with a slow leak. The walls don't collapse overnight, but drip by drip, the damage becomes undeniable. One day they look around and realize the warmth is gone. The support is missing. The joy feels hollow. The people left in their life mirror their own behavior: transactional, detached, and uninterested in anything deeper than the surface. And what's most painful? Realizing the thing they lost wasn't just you. It was the version of themselves that could hold something real. You see, maybe they once told you that you were too emotional, too much, too soft. They rolled their eyes at your efforts. They dismissed your concern as overreaction. But behind all those too much accusations was someone who had no idea how to receive love. You stayed up late comforting them, offered your heart when they felt lost, forgave them when they didn't deserve it. You saw the best in them, even when they couldn't. But they mocked that softness, laughed at your loyalty, believed your presence was a given, not a gift. And eventually you stopped offering. You stopped reaching, stopped explaining, and without any drama, you left. They thought your absence would be temporary. They thought they'd feel relief. But instead came the echo, the silence that made everything else louder, the loss of your voice, your care, your belief in them. And that's when karma began its real work, not by hurting them, but by showing them what they gave up. The people around them now, they don't check in. They don't sit with their storms. They offer surface smiles and empty words. And every moment they try to fill the space you once held only reminds them that no one else can. It's like losing the only map that led to peace and being too prideful to admit they're lost. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one." Karma doesn't punish by striking back, it punishes by peeling away illusions. It makes them live without the comfort of who they were when they were still loved by someone who meant it. They might have moved on physically. They might be with someone new. But when that new person only knows the version of them that's still performing, still pretending, still avoiding the truth, that's not love. That's a role they're playing. So let them talk. Let them post. Let them repeat the same old stories while you've grown quietly beyond them. Because karma doesn't just take away people or opportunities. It takes away the best version of a person, the one they were when they still had your love, your trust, and your peace. And that version, they'll never find it again. Comment with this affirmation: I release what was never mine to carry. I let karma speak in silence. Have you ever felt the quiet justice of karma doing its work while you healed? Drop your affirmation or story in the comments and hold space for others reclaiming their peace. The third sign someone is quietly receiving their karma: you still live in their mind, rent-free. Even if they never say your name, even if they pretend you don't exist, their silence speaks volumes. It shows up in cryptic quotes on social media. Some people don't know what they had until it's gone. Or, not everyone deserves my energy anymore. At first glance, these might seem generic, just noise in the endless scroll of emotional content. But you recognize the tone. You know the subtext, because you know them. It's like hearing a familiar melody played slightly off key. You may be the only one who notices, but that's because you once danced to that tune. You once listened closely enough to understand them even when they weren't saying anything. And now those same silences, the ones you once comforted, are echoing back at them, loudly, inescapably. They didn't tag you, of course, they won't mention you. But every post, every vaguely bitter caption is like a message in a bottle tossed at your feet. They want your attention without asking for it. They want you to see them hurting, but without giving you the satisfaction of knowing they still care. That's not strength, that's guilt, trying to dress up as self-growth. Here's the truth. Karma doesn't always come with consequences you can see. Sometimes it whispers through the mind at midnight. It sends old memories looping like broken records. It flashes back to moments when love was offered and rejected, when kindness was dismissed as weakness. It plays those reels over and over, until even their best distractions can't drown them out. It's like trying to sleep in a room full of ticking clocks. One clock is the laugh they haven't heard since you left. Another is the text they never replied to. Another is the version of themselves they became while trying to convince the world and themselves that they didn't lose anything. But they did. And now instead of moving on, they talk around you. They vent in metaphors, post heartbreak poetry, share memes about loyalty and being used. They tell stories with missing pieces, twist the narrative just enough to seem blameless. But their truth isn't in what they say, it's in what they avoid saying. You. That's karma too. Not just regret, but fixation. Not just absence, but obsession. And you don't need to respond. You don't need to post something back or share your side of the story. That's not what the Stoic does. The Stoic doesn't chase closure. The Stoic doesn't clap back with clever captions. The Stoic observes. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks ill of you, live in such a way that no one will believe it." That's your power now, to stay silent, to live so steadily in your truth that no amount of half-truths can touch you. Because the louder they try to rewrite the story, the more obvious it becomes that they haven't let go of the original chapter. Let them speak in circles. Let them craft quotes that drip with unresolved guilt. Let them pretend they're healed, even as they keep finding ways to mention you without mentioning you. Because the person who moved on doesn't need to signal it. They just move. They just grow. But the person who posts through their pain, who drops vague lines like breadcrumbs, they're still standing in the same place they were when you walked away. Only now they're surrounded by echoes. It's like they're talking to a ghost. And the haunting part is, you're still alive, just not reachable. That's the cruel grace of karma. It doesn't always take things from people. Sometimes it just lets them sit with what they've lost, unable to get it back. And here's the deepest wound. When you betray someone good, you don't just lose them. You lose the ability to trust anyone who reminds you of them, even yourself. Because the very qualities that once felt safe, softness, loyalty, real connection, now feel like threats. They remind you of what you rejected, and that's the part they can't escape. So stay silent. Let them carry your name like a weight they can't put down. You don't need to be in their life to live in their thoughts. And while the world may never know how deeply they regret losing you, they do, and that's enough. Comment affirmation: I choose peace over proving. I let karma whisper what I no longer need to say. Have you ever read a post and felt it was meant for you, even though your name wasn't there? Share your story below. Let's hold space for those healing without needing to explain themselves. The fourth sign that someone is silently receiving their karma is this: they no longer believe in others, and eventually they stop believing in themselves. At first, it doesn't look like punishment. It even looks wise. They say they're protecting their peace. They keep their circle small. They don't open up like they used to. They stop laughing with their full heart. They pull back. They get cautious, hypervigilant. Maybe they call it maturity or boundaries or being done with fake people. But underneath that armor is not strength. It's fear, not just any fear, the kind that grows in the shadow of guilt. You've seen this unravel before. This wasn't always them. Once upon a time, they were open, sometimes too open. They trusted easily, laughed loudly, gave their energy freely. But then they crossed a line. Maybe it was with you, maybe with someone else. They betrayed, lied, ghosted, manipulated, or harmed someone who genuinely cared. And when they walked away from the fallout, it might have looked like nothing changed. On the outside, they kept going, but on the inside, the seeds of self-doubt were already starting to take root. Now they flinch at kindness, they question compliments, they see danger in love, they interpret compassion as manipulation. Why? Because deep down, they know what they themselves are capable of. And when you know you've once hurt someone good, it becomes terrifying to trust anyone who shows you that same goodness. You assume there's a price. You assume the warmth is temporary, that the truth will always flip, just like you flipped it. The betrayal you inflicted on someone else starts to echo back at you in your own mind, and suddenly every new connection becomes a mirror. Karma doesn't always hit with a bang. Sometimes it whispers, "You know what you did." And the most intimate punishment karma can deliver is this: self-suspicion. It doesn't isolate you through force. It doesn't take your friends away or strip you of opportunity in some loud, obvious way. Instead, it builds a wall inside your mind, slowly, quietly, one stone of guilt, one brick of shame, one nail of paranoia at a time, until one day you realize you're alone, not because others left, but because you don't let anyone in anymore. And it all started when you violated your own integrity. Seneca said, "He who does wrong rarely trusts anyone else because he knows what he is capable of." This is the essence of karma's quiet justice. When you act in a way that betrays your values, the punishment isn't always external. The greatest loss is internal. You lose the ability to trust your own instincts. You become suspicious of love because you know how easily you once twisted it. You question loyalty because you know how quickly you betrayed it. You doubt people's kindness because you remember using kindness as a mask, and so begins the erosion. Even in a room full of support, you feel uneasy. Even in a new relationship, you hold back. Even when you finally meet someone real, someone kind, someone safe, you can't fully receive it. Something inside whispers, "You don't deserve this." And worse, they'll leave you like you left others. That's not intuition, that's karma. It's like drinking from a poisoned well. The water looks clean, clear, but every sip carries the aftertaste of what you did. No matter how refreshing the moment seems, the bitterness always returns. And eventually, even joy starts to feel like a threat. This is the prison karma builds, not of steel, but of self-rust. You corrode from the inside out, not because life punished you in dramatic ways, but because it introduced you to a version of yourself you can't run from. And it happens slowly, subtly, until it becomes unbearable. Now they scan every room for signs of betrayal. They read between every word of a text. They overanalyze tone, delay, silence. They assume every goodbye might be forever. And what's heartbreaking is, they might not even realize why they're doing it. They think they're just wiser now. But it's not wisdom. It's paranoia born of guilt. You see, when you wrong someone good, someone real, you don't just lose them. You lose the version of yourself that could exist peacefully in their presence. You lose the ability to trust people like them. And worst of all, you lose trust in yourself. Because once you break something pure, you start to believe that nothing can ever be pure again. So if they're guarded now, if they keep their head down, their heart closed, their feet empty, let them. Don't take it personally. And don't try to go back to show them that not everyone is the same. That's not your burden. That's not your job. Your role was never to be the redeemer of someone who chose to self-destruct. You offered love, you gave honesty, you brought presence and truth and healing, and they gave you betrayal, silence, and pain. Now karma is doing what it does best, not through chaos or drama, but through the slow, haunting collapse of self-belief. Even in their most peaceful moments, they can't fully relax. Even in solitude, their thoughts are loud. That's the final trick of karma. It turns the mind into the punishment, not with guilt alone, but with the deep, unsettling question, what if I don't deserve peace? And if that thought finds a home in someone's conscience, no amount of vacation photos, new partners, or fake positivity will drown it out. The Stoics taught that peace comes from living in harmony with your principles. And when you break that harmony, you don't need someone to come for revenge. You just need silence, because that silence will do all the talking. So if they're distant now, guarded, cold, let them be. If they can't trust anyone anymore, let that be their path. You are not meant to carry the guilt they earned. You are not meant to return just to prove you're safe. Their punishment is already unfolding, not in public, but in private, where it matters most. Because karma doesn't yell, it introduces you to yourself. And once you lose trust in that person staring back at you in the mirror, that is when you truly understand what regret feels like. Comment affirmation: I don't chase closure. I trust the silence to reveal the truth. Peace is my proof. The fifth and most undeniable sign that someone is silently receiving their karma is when life sends them someone just like them. Not just a bad match, not just the wrong person, but a mirror, a walking reflection of everything they once did to someone who loved them. And that reflection, it doesn't show up loud. It shows up sweet, charming, attractive, just like they once were when they were winning your trust. At first, it feels like destiny. They think they've finally met their match. The chemistry is off the charts. The connection feels deep, instant, magnetic. But what they don't realize yet is that they're not falling in love with something new. They're falling into a karmic loop, one designed to show them not who they love, but who they've been. And this time, they're not the one holding power. Remember how they once made you feel unsure, like you were never enough, no matter how much you gave. Now they find themselves chasing texts that never come, waiting for calls that get ignored, posting things just to be seen and still getting silence. They once played hot and cold with you. Now they're dating someone who burns them with silence, then floods them with affection, then pulls away again and calls them too emotional. They used to turn your vulnerability into a joke. Now they open up and get mocked in return. They once had your loyalty and they walked away. Now they beg for commitment from someone who keeps one foot in and the other out. At first, they rationalize it. They say, this person just has issues. They're complicated. They're misunderstood. But slowly, deep down, a horrifying thought starts to rise. This is what I did to someone. They don't say it out loud. They may never admit it, but the thought haunts them in quiet moments. It shows up in the pause before they fall asleep, in the silence after yet another failed attempt to connect. Because the pain they're feeling now, it's not random. It's not just bad luck. It's pattern recognition, and it's karmic justice at its most poetic form. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." But the universe, it doesn't seek revenge. It seeks restoration, and it restores balance, not by hurting someone back, but by giving them a lived experience of the pain they once caused through someone they can't control, can't fix, can't predict. This isn't about punishment, it's about perspective. Because no lesson is remembered more deeply than the one that is felt. They used to laugh at how much you cared. Now they're crying over someone who couldn't care less. They used to belittle your needs. Now they're being called too much by someone who withholds affection. They used to walk away like they were untouchable. Now they're begging someone to stay, to respond, to try, and that someone simply shrugs, and that's when it hits them. Not all at once, but gradually, painfully, unably. They're not just being hurt, they're being reflected, and the mirror doesn't lie. Let them meet their match. Let them feel the confusion, the powerlessness, the heartache of being seen, used, and dismissed, just like they once did to you. But this time, there's no one left to blame. No one to gaslight, no one to twist the narrative for, because the person on the other side of this pain isn't some monster. It's them in a different body with the same behavior. That's not revenge. That's return. Karma doesn't scream, doesn't attack, doesn't destroy. It reflects. So when they ask, why is this happening to me? The answer is simple. You're not being punished, you're being shown. You don't need to fight people who are already fighting themselves. Karma doesn't need your help. It doesn't need you to clap back. It doesn't need you to prove your side of the story or to beg the world to see your worth. It only needs one thing from you: your silence, your composure, your refusal to sink to their level. Because while they're still tangled in lies, pride, and manipulation, you've already stepped into something far more powerful: clarity. You see, karma isn't just about what happens to them, it's also about what happens to you. When you finally let go, you stop needing closure because peace becomes your closure. You stop needing justice because time becomes your witness, and you stop needing them to feel what they did to you because life already knows how to teach the lesson. Your job isn't to punish. Your job is to rise, to become so grounded, so stable, so inwardly strong that no one can shake your peace again, not even the ghost of the person who hurt you. That is the Stoic way. We don't curse our enemies. We don't chase validation. We simply walk forward quietly, powerfully, with the kind of discipline that karma deeply respects. So if you're watching this and someone's hurt you, someone who never apologized, someone who pretended they did nothing wrong, someone who moved on like you didn't matter, let them. Because while they may look free, they are quietly haunted by the one thing: they can't silence the truth. And trust this, people who lie to others sleep fine. But people who lie to themselves, they don't sleep at all. If this message spoke to you, don't waste your energy chasing the past. Comment below with the one line that hit you hardest. Let others know they're not alone. And if you're walking this path of silence and inner strength, subscribe to Stoic Strength Quest. We don't just talk about healing, we train the mind to lead, not react. We build clarity, we build discipline, we build unshakable peace. Let karma do what karma does, and you keep becoming someone they'll never have access to again. That's not revenge, that's evolution, and the world watches in silence. Thank you for watching.